welcome everybody. If you are showing up for our 2024 Swanepoel Trends Report Trends Tracking webinar, you're in the right place. We're going to have kind of a quick run through of some of the trends that we're following and that we plan on doing some updates this year on. And I have, as often, Paul Hagey is joining us. Yeah, Paul Hagey's joining us from the Trends Research team, also our editor-in-chief and an associate partner. And Paul will guide us a little bit through the report. We had a lot of registrations for today, so we're going to give people a minute to get in, and then we're going to get going. I think, Paul, we've got we have a half hour for this update.
Yeah, and I don't know if we'll use that whole time, but I think this one is kind of showing our process a little bit, because we've done the 2024 report, but this is kind of a conversation, a little bit of a follow-on to some of those trends, but also what we're starting to pull the thread on for this year, and thinking of potentially, we're not setting it yet, but the 2025 report, believe it or not,
we have to start
thinking about what's happening.
Yeah, we have to start thinking about what's happening while the year is unfolding. And obviously we're fairly early in 24. We're just at the 17th of January. So
as you and I have talked, and what we're starting to do is we're going to do some real-time updates and analysis on some of these developments, because all these trends are part of a bigger matrix, and there's a lot of developments within them, and we're going to start contextualizing that on a more regular basis.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Also, we have a great group. I think the people that follow the Swanepoel Trends Report and T360 in general are pretty plugged in group. So if you do have a trend or something that you're watching or tracking in your market, now would be a great time to bring it to our attention. So feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can send it as a Q&A. We'll be looking out for that. We are continuously interviewing industry leaders. I did 2 interviews yesterday with CEOs of national companies, and just to find out what they're paying attention to. Again, this is a pretty savvy group. So if there's something you're paying attention to, we'd love to hear from you, and pitch us. Say, hey, I think this is a trend that's happening. We'd love to know.
Or I want to understand more about this. Like, this is happening, but no, I can't find any information on it. Well, that's a perfect example of something that we would like to focus on.
Great. Well, looks like we've got a pretty good group here. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to our a few of the slides that we're going to share, and I think we can jump right in here, Paul. So first of all, if you just joined us, my name's Jack Miller. I'm the president and CEO of T360. I have here Paul Hagey, our editor-in-chief of the Swanepoel Trends Report and the Real Estate Almanac and all of our research publications. Paul is also an associate partner in the company, and a longtime contributor to the Swanepoel Trends Report and many of our other published reports. So thank you for joining us, Paul. And tell the group what we're going to talk about today.
So we're talking about we just came out with the trends report at the end of last year, and we're going to do a little bit of a follow-on to some of those trends, but then also talk about some of the trends we're tracking this year and pulling the threads on, like, hey, this is what we're watching, and these are the elements of those trends that we're tracking. And so just to begin the kind of conversation of what we think is really going to be shaping the industry in the next 18 to 24 months as we digest the current report.
Perfect. Just a few things, a little bit about the company, so that everybody here is aware. We do have 3 research publications that we're providing. The Swanepoel Trends Report every year in its 19th edition. We have a long history of tracking trends in the industry and kind of calling where the industry is going to go. We don't always get the timing perfect, but we can usually tell you what trends are happening. And this is also a way to get right at the kind of cutting edge of what people are talking about happening in the industry. The Real Estate Almanac, our annual compilation of the industry's largest companies, brokerage, franchises, MLSs, organized real estate, top 200 industry leaders, which we released last week, technology companies, and just a wealth of data. We do it as a print publication, as well as online at realestatealmanac.com. We're going to be releasing sections of that every month for the next few months, so you'll be seeing a lot of that research. And then our T3 Tech Guide, we released a new version of the Tech Guide in the fall of last year. And so if you haven't picked that up, there's a digital version that's available at no cost. So you can download that or get access to it through our T3 Trends website. We had some print copies, but we gave them all away. But the digital version is still available, and you'll be seeing some about that. So that's a little bit about the company. We do provide consulting. Those of you that have worked with us before, we work with brokerages and teams on everything from performance analysis to M&A. We do a lot of technology consulting, advisement on purchasing, negotiation of vendor contracts, project management, planning. We do work in organized real estate. Clint leads that practice. We've been placing 2 to 3 executives a month, as well as helping companies do hiring in general. And lastly, we manage, people don't know this, we have our own events, but we also manage events for other companies. We manage on average, anywhere from a dozen to 2 dozen events every year for other companies. These can be small get-togethers. These can be national conferences. We manage currently, I think, 4 national conferences for real estate companies.
Jack, I think all this is relevant because part of the trends we're watching comes as an outgrowth of all the work and all the touch points we're touching all facets of the industry, and we're hearing and we're analyzing, we're talking. You mentioned talking to leaders. I'm talking to leaders. All our consultants are deep into the businesses of their clients and others, and so we really have our ear to the ground. And this is some of what that's what comes out in the trends report, and this is some of what this presentation is about.
Yeah, it's a learning organization. I mean, I learned some incredible stuff yesterday, which hopefully we'll share. We've got a call on Friday for people involved with the buyer brokerage program, and learned some really interesting information about transaction broker states, which we'll be sharing with you on Friday. So good stuff there. So let's jump into trends we're tracking in 2024. So Paul, why don't we'll start with our first one, which is what's happening with the National Association of Realtors. So talk us through this.
This was our lead chapter in the 2024 report, and it's not here first because it was the lead chapter, but it is, as we know, in recent, like last week or the week after or the week before, our president surprisingly resigned, and we can see this is a timeline of some of the known issues in the last roughly 6 months. And in the chapter, we really we try to get what's the root cause, because these are a lot of symptoms, Jack. And I know you talked to a lot of people for this. You played a big role in helping develop this chapter. And in the purpose of that is like, this is an ongoing, NAR plays a very vital role in the industry. And the industry, in a lot of ways, needs it. Consumers need it. And depending on how this year goes, it has an opportunity to really reshape itself and become strong or stronger, or it's trying to figure out what it's going to be. The leadership they have an interim CEO, that they have a new president, and it's a big year for NAR.
Yeah, we are going to be watching the association space very closely because of exactly the points that Paul is bringing up. That we're in a transition time for the National Association of Realtors. There are organizations that are talking about whether or not to remain affiliated. There are people talking about whether they should, the MLS should take a separate path and, move into some sort of different ownership structure. So there's just a very active conversation in this space. We did have a member who's attending today say that there may be something to watch concerning executive employment trends in here. That there's going to be some consolidation, and there may be less executives in the organized real estate space because of that. We've certainly seen that in the MLS space. We've been consolidating, about a dozen MLSs a year. There's some indications that may speed up. That may be something that increases due to the pressure from lawsuits and organizational changes and a need for better management. So yeah, I think the whole organized real estate space, the association world, is going to be one to watch this year, and I expect we'll write about it again. We'll have more to say.
It's poised. I mean, it's poised for something potentially big, yeah. And there's a lot of unknown here, and that's what makes it really interesting. And it's something we're actively actually watching and talking to folks about. As you mentioned, Jack, there's, and the lawsuits are just, that's just one facet of it.
It is. There's so many parts of it that have to do with the organizational structure and whether or not people want to remain affiliated, or so there's questions beyond the lawsuits are just one angle. There's many other angles here. So
yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to our next one. So inventory. Talk to us about inventory.
This one, as anybody in the industry knows, it's a years long facet of the industry that has basically been the limiting factor on the market in most areas of the country. And we cover this again in the report. it's going to be another key element of this year because home sales, as we know, are projected to, they're not projected to be as low as they or look like they will be this in 2023, but they're still going to be low. And a big part of that is we still don't have the supply for a variety of reasons. And mortgage rates are, people are locked into low rates, and that's probably one of the cheap ones.
Early signs appear to be supply is recovering, but we're not even back to where we were in 2019, which was still at a low supply point. And I think this year, we're exploring some other avenues that could impact housing inventory, such as, are Airbnb owners going to decide to, give their homes back to the market and not try to make the Airbnb work anymore? Is there going to be legislation in Congress this year that would encourage long-term small mom and pop homeowners to basically give them a tax abatement or some kind of tax advantage for selling long-held rental properties? Are there things that could happen in the financing space that would make it easier for more people to transact? And so there's some other areas that we feel need to be explored with regard to inventory. Obviously, brokerage industry doesn't control inventory, but are through lobbying and through awareness and through creating other options in finance, there may be other ways that we can help inventory come to market.
And a result, I mean, another facet of this in inventory is kind of the bigger kind of movement, but there's less home sales, there's more competition, and we're seeing less transactions for the same number of agents, which is going to make more competition among those agents, and also for brokerages who have the agents on their rosters, and that's just going to sharpen everything. And we go through cycles. Everybody probably on this call knows this is an ebb and flow in the industry, but this is a time that where things are going to shake out, and there's going to be some changes and some evolution, and there's some opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities in a market like this.
Yeah, for sure. Consolidation, shaking out agents that are ready to go, focusing and consolidating. Generally, the professionals do better in these markets because a lot of the less capable players will tend to get out. So we've actually seen in prior markets like this that the professionals may end up even doing more volume than they would in a different market where it's like, okay, because some of the competition goes away in markets like these. All right, so let's talk about our third trend we're watching. In this one, we've got front row seat with a lot of our clients, which is brokerage profitability. Talk to us about brokerage profitability.
This is something we've been watching for years, Jack, and I think this was the latest. I compiled all of these and we track all of these numbers, but this is the latest numbers for 2023 through the first 9 months of the year. And these are the public companies, so they report all this. Look at these profit margins. These are the largest companies in the industry. These are their
it's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible to see this.
It's black and white.
Yeah,
it's pretty. I mean, and we know those are in a lot of smaller brokerages, and they have better margins than this, but still, this is a challenge.
Yeah, we got a few people. We got a few people that dialed in, and because of that, I feel the need to read some of these percentages for our few people that are dialed into this call. So, Anywhere Real Estate. This is first quarter through third quarter of 2023. Q4 has not been made public yet for the majority of these companies. We're not going to see those results for probably another month. Anywhere Real Estate, 0.2%. Compass, negative 6.3%. Douglas Elliman, negative 3.7%. eXp Realty, 0.4%. Fathom Realty, minus 5.8%. The Real Brokerage, minus 3%. Redfin, minus 12.3%. I mean, that's even the ones that are profitable, I don't think you are having a big party. That's just it's basically break even profitability. It's to say, well, Anywhere and that's EXP basically
these are the largest
2.4%. Yeah, that's not a huge number there.
And to be clear, this is calculated by total revenue, net revenue divided by total revenue.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's a thin business right now, and there's a lot of reasons for this. We also track. There's the split with brokerages and agents. So the company dollar. There's the commission rate continues to go down. I mean, this is irrespective of the lawsuits. This is just the longer term trend of it looks like it's continuing it's under, I think it's 4.83 the last time I calculated that was 2022 numbers using Anywhere Real Estate's public filings as
then
the
we had
proxy.
we had a very astute listener. Obviously, we have some very astute listeners that tune in to anything T360 does. Say, hey, where is Remax's net profit? I think you left them out because they're purely a franchise. I
This
don't
is
know.
not a complete list. But
yeah.
this was illustrative. We have Remax, we have the others public companies in our spreadsheet, but I think it's probably in line here.
Yeah, in indicative. And again, these are things that I know, Paul, you're issuing some quarterly updates, and we're going to be tracking these numbers each week.
And maybe,
and then Michael asked a very good question. Says, what about Keller Williams? Well, these are all publicly traded companies. So every company here has to submit their financials to the SEC. And so we're able to pull these out of public reports and information. Whereas Keller Williams still privately held, the majority hold.
They release quarterly information, but it's a very in a select capacity, and it's not the same, and they're not reporting the same numbers.
Yeah. Although Paul, I would have no problem with us going to them and saying, hey, everybody else.
Yeah.
Got numbers for everybody else. Hey, let's get yours in the mix, because
you're the biggest of the big, or you're among the biggest of the big. Let's do it.
Our inquired minds want to know, so let's find out.
This is a trend we're watching because it's a larger trend, but there's a lot of spin-off of these the trends that fall into this. There's the focus on ancillary businesses that brokerages are needing to beef up those other elements of their business to supplement the brokerage side. There's also scale. Companies are needing to get bigger. And that's another long-term trend we see in the Mega 1000 data, Jack, that we do every year. It's the market share of the largest companies is continuing to go up. And a lot of it comes down to the profitability issue.
Yeah, it does. It does. The big are getting bigger, and they're doing things to be operationally efficient at scale. And that continues. We've seen consolidation for the last 5 years of transactions and sales volume. Sales volume first, transactions follow, but sales volume definitely first, where it, nearly 60% of the industry is consolidated into that top 100.
And this also is spurring kind of different types of business models and different flavors of business models. Like the brokerage as a service is one. There's the asset light kind of model that Real Brokerage and EXP are leveraging, and newer companies are starting to leverage, where they're not the expenses are much lower than many other brokerages. So there's a lot of threads to this longer term development.
Very good. All right, well, let's talk about our fourth trend we're tracking, which is buyer brokerage.
Is this horse dead yet?
It is not. It is not. I mean, we're seeing a lawsuit. I just got Real Estate News just pinged yesterday. There's an additional lawsuit that's been filed.
I think this number, the 18 number, includes, I think, that one. There's 18 lawsuits and counting.
Yeah.
And they're just, I mean, I think it's most large companies in the industry are now named in a lot of regions of the country. Not every state yet, but
it does appear that any brokerage of size is being named in these lawsuits. And it's like when we go through our client list of the largest companies and the largest companies on the Mega 1000, we're just marking them all off as they're all being named in a lawsuit in their state or in their region. So those are continuing to happen. We don't think this is going to stop. We think this is going to continue. So I don't know what else you want to say about this. I've got some things to say about actual.
We've covered pretty. Let's jump to the next. We've covered this quite a bit.
So on buyer brokerage, some of you are aware we're doing a lot of hands-on work with brokerages. We've also done some work with some states that are examining how to wrestle with this issue. Most brokers that we are working with currently, our consulting team is doing this. This has become a significant line of practice for us. Are looking at their buyer brokerage agreements, educating their agents, trying to get to where they're consistently using some kind of buyer representation agreement, regardless of flavor, but a buyer representation agreement that provides some guaranteed compensation for the buyer brokerage business, because there are many places where people are hearing about these lawsuits, and sellers are saying, well, I don't want to offer anything or thing, and this has been going on for a while. This is not a new thing. People have been offering less compensation to the buy side for some time. So we're seeing significant practice concerns around that. We're also seeing transaction broker states, which I think there's about a half a dozen transaction brokerage states, ones that by default, unless you have a representation agreement in place, you are in a transaction broker status. That in many of these states, it's especially challenging because agents are just not accustomed to signing anything up front other than a state mandated disclosure, if that. And some of the states that are transaction broker by default states don't have any mandatory disclosures. And then we're learning a lot about kind of the some of the funky agency laws in some of our states like this, like Florida in particular. I've really been taken to school over the last couple of weeks about Florida and its agency rules, and how, as a lot of brokers are operating in Florida, don't seem to understand the agency rules there either. So I think a lot of brokers are having to go back and look at how do we implement stronger buyer brokerage practices. How do we cope with deficiencies that may exist in our agency rules or practices? And then additionally, how do we look at listing side transactions, and just that there will be potentially more unrepresented buyers that are involved in these transactions? How do you protect yourself legally? How do you educate your agents about those situations? How do you handle those? Because there may be and are likely to be more of those in places where there's not really any way for the buyer agent or buyer brokerage to be involved in providing services. So that's on the practice side. Paul, on the policy side, a lot of conversations at the state level around buyer broker agreements and updating those. We've seen a number of states that are working on updating the buyer brokerage agreements, kind of in concert with the brokers. Brokers are saying, hey, we need to update it. A lot of the states are updating their promulgated forms or things that they provide through their state association. And then also national policy regarding lending. There's discussions around changing of the caps of seller concessions that are allowed to enable more closing costs in order to help pay for buyer brokerage services, financing of buyer broker commissions, and how things like VA loans are going to be handled. So those are active conversations on the policy side. Again, we think they're, because of the expansive nature of the impact of the lawsuits on how buyer brokerage works, how compensation works, potential settlement terms that may impact this, that this is an area that we are very likely to write about in the 2020.
There's a lot of, like some of the other trends, there's a lot of unknowns. Because what is the impact of, if there is a change, then what is the downstream impact, and what is the response, and what models will win in those scenarios? What practices will then develop? What policies will need to be developed? This is actively, it's almost like the future is being shaped now in some ways about what the industry will look like.
It does. And some of this is in conversations. I mean, we are talking to some large brokerages about who are wanting to see a settlement, because it's going to impact their operations. It's very expensive. I mean, I discussed with a mid-sized brokerage that also runs a franchise network, and their legal bill in the next year is deep six figures just to defend themselves, not to win, not to close it, not to be done, but deep six figures just to be involved in one of these lawsuits. And because of that, I think there's some pressure on settling. And some of those settlement terms we have to consider now, and there are things being kicked around, like one of the settlement terms may be that the MLS compensation, the buyer brokerage compensation field, comes out of the MLS. Just that's no longer in there.
And there's some like a Rebney, I think, in the New York board, they prevent offers.
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
I mean, they're not NAR affiliated, but
yeah. But I think people are looking at Rebney.
Example.
Yeah, I think people are looking at Rebney and saying this may be a future that we should consider, because.
And then what's the downstream impact of that? This is why this is one of the things that there's a lot of impacts of this as it develops, and we'll be tracking it closely.
Yeah, we're learning about it as we're working with brokers in individual states and with some of the associations that we're doing some work with. So we consider many updates here. We got two more. We'll be fast so we wrap up on time. So online real estate, the continued battle to control the consumer online. Talk to us about what
this. A lot of this is. It's related to the buyer brokerage to some degree, because these companies are really aggressively developing seller focused or listing focused services, which they've been doing for a long time, but there's extra heat on that. But there's also, we have just the homes.com is going to come in kind of full bore in 2024, and CoStar, the owner of the portal, has a well-worn strategy in other verticals, and they're about to bring it full bore into the real estate industry or the residential side, sales side. And so we're going to see a lot of attention here and a lot of competition. It's already started late last year, and it's going to continue. So it's just something to watch. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for brokers and agents potentially to have another powerful channel to market and to get leads, and it's a different way that they're planning on working. So it's an area of activity.
Yeah, it's going to continue to be a very active space. And then this is our last one that we want to discuss today, which is the continued implementation of artificial intelligence in our industry. I know everybody's been to a conference in the last 6 months that had sessions on artificial intelligence, and
every product in the industry has
every
AI
product has, they've all said so, but there's some very real stuff here that we've observed, and some products are coming out that will enable even like automated voice follow-up on, fully handing off, being able to say, hey, I've got a customer database that's got 2,000 people in it, and they need some personalized follow-up on a regular basis, not just via email, not just via text, but via phone call. So there's some things that are being introduced to this industry that are just really groundbreaking in terms of customer contact, lead development, workflow improvements. And so we expect to be writing about some of the specifics that come out of what is.
And we have a chapter in 2024 that kind of goes over the basics and generative AI down to the foundational level of like what you hear a lot of buzz, but we cut through it to like the essence of it and how is it organized, what are its promises, what are its limitations, what are its predominant applications. And I think it's a really useful kind of orientation for a lot of these. But yes, we're going to be doing a lot of follow-on analysis this year.
Yeah, there's more here. I feel like, Paul, that is, as much hype was made about blockchain and all these currencies, which and there are some impacts from blockchain that will impact our industry, but they're looking to be
this one is more.
This one's much more public facing, much more already is impacting people's day to day. And potentially having a substantial, it's a rethink of a lot of software in an industry where there's still a lot of things done manually that generative AI and related technologies can play a role. Now
they're just getting so powerful that it's like undeniable, like the impact is going to increase. Yeah,
things that we thought might be possible 6 months ago are now available as products today. So it's that's how quickly things are changing in the space. And I think we have an interview with a very knowledgeable AI researcher and scientist
next week.
Yeah,
so that's you and Kurt are gonna. Yeah, that's gonna be great.
We're going to dive into it. Kurt's he is a great thinker on these topics. He's been in artificial intelligence since the 90s, has really a long view and a comprehensive view. So we'll dig into that next week. So just to keep us on time, I know we promised people half an hour. So this is a little summary.
I can quickly, this really, we have the T3 trends, and we cover these, the trends report is kind of, the horizon is broad and it's deep, and it's attempted to give foundational research to an analysis to leaders, so that the chapters that we publish them year after year, but they're foundational enough to where you can reference them over time. And that's where we have a subscription, the digital subscription, you get access to all the trends reports. And so all the topics we've covered today, they have multiple threads throughout these chapters, and you can put them together and really start understanding. The whole point is what's happening and how do you take advantage of it? And that's what this resource is designed for. So just to give people the tool, or to let them know that it's there, and this is where you can get it. And we're going to be doing in newer this year, Jack, is we're going to do updates on these trends throughout the year, and because these are all living, and they're echoes of the trends we've done, they're all there, and we're going to do a better job of updating in real time for leaders
We know there are questions about the trends and how they impact practice and what leaders should do about it. And so we're intending to and are providing more content, such as sessions like today. And and additional value adds to these publications. So if you're not a subscriber, get subscribed. tfutrends.com/trends. You'll be invited to some private webinars, to some sessions where we go over recent data like housing data, stats, changes in buyer brokerage, things happening at the association and NAR level that we think leaders need to be in tune with. And we know we've got a great group here that many of you will be in for those, and we'll be able to have some terrific discussions. So that's it. I think we accomplished our mission today, Paul. Next week we're doing a deep dive on artificial intelligence impacts. We're going to get the long view as well as the immediate view from a very knowledgeable researcher and scientist in this area who helped us write our Trends Report chapter this year. And I look forward to that. So great seeing everybody again, Paul, as always. Terrific to have you back on board, and we'll do it again next week. Thanks, everybody.